In this exciting series, we'll reveal some of New York's most interesting architecture and interiors projects.
New York architecture is world-renowned. In this series, we highlight and celebrate that magnificent work.
Welcome to New York by Design Architecture.
We've gathered a diverse group of design industry leaders at 277 Fifth Avenue Panoramic Penthouse in the Sky to judge which architectural projects will go through to the final to ultimately be crowned this season's winner.
I think the projects are amazing. We have high-end residential, we have homes in suburbia or high-rise apartment buildings in New York City.
It is one thing to know a building from being on the sidewalk, and it's another thing to know what this apartment is like being in it, what it's like to hear from the designers. Those stories are what bring architecture alive.
Design is for everybody, not just a select few. So it's really about taking design out of the glossy magazines and out onto the streets and to everybody's lives.
Let's get started with a look at our first project.
The Cocoon House is a very cool project. I love this idea of this curved form in architecture. It really stood out for me.
I appreciate the fact that it's kind of like a passive home where they utilize passive energy facing the south and collecting the energy and restoring it in the back of the house.
Just the name itself tells you so much about it. It's a protective home for her family, a cocoon.
The Cocoon House is designed around some very important architectural principles. It's designed to be very specific to this site, and yet it's also designed to be replicated. That's confusing. How can that be? Nina, I'm getting some mixed messages here. This house is so specific to this site, and yet it can be built anywhere? How does all that work?
It's actually more an approach to the site, which is replicable. So I always tell my students, when you design and draw a site plan, the first thing we need to know is where's the north. And then we need to know where the prevailing breeze is coming from, which is from the south. And then we need to know our sun path. So this house is very much based on this really simple, basic passive house principles, which is about collecting solar heat gain from the south and retaining that heat in the northern wall.
Wow, Joe, I'm looking at this house. I'm seeing a lot of curves.
Yeah, it was quite complicated. It definitely was a challenge for sure. Each of the shingles from the top down, they're steamed in a steamer to the radius of the bend of the roof. This little section here could take a week to 10 days.
Wow,
just to get
10
it right.
days.
Here's another example of the radiuses in the house. These are the main structures. They were made off-site, a company called Unilam. They were fabricated and designed as we were building the foundation.
Now tell me about these sheetrock curves. How do you do that without getting any seams? How do you bend sheetrock like that?
There's some scoring, but there's what we use is called the wiggly board. It's a plywood that is made to bend. That's the first layer. And then there's 2 layers of drywall on top of that.
So this house is a pilot, almost a prototype, right? Anybody could have this house because it would be replicable.
Yes, now that it's built, it could definitely be replicable.
Wow, I love how these skylights really illuminate the hallways.
Each piece of glass is a different color. We had to match Nina's color scheme, and there's interlayers inside the glass itself. Kind of like a car windshield when you have that film inside of it.
So it's not tinted?
It's part of the glass. It's part of the interlayer in between the glass.
Now, Nina told me she was inspired by the color palette of a Turner painting, and now that I know that, I think she really nailed it. Now tell me about these panels up here. They look really unusual.
We eliminated the curb and waterproofed the skylight framing itself right into the structure.
Yeah, I'm used to seeing skylights that are added on to the exterior of the roof, and these are all part of the design.
Yeah, it just gives it one nice, sleek look.
So Scott, when you walk in here is when you can really see the curve.
Oh yeah, not a seam anywhere.
The curve is actually based on the idea that this house revolves around light. And so the eggshell shape here takes in the shadow projections.
Okay, so I'm starting to get it. We have the site, we have the curve. What's the third element that's driving this?
Is the experience of the house and well-being in the house comes paramount. So even though this is a gold LEED certified house, it's an effective element that's actually serving the affective design of the house. So architects like Richard Neutra throughout time have used reflecting pools as a design element.
I really like what Nina said about effect serving affect. The mark of a true innovation is that it solves a functional problem but delivers a positive emotional response as well. And you'd have to say, the self-sustaining, solar-powered Cocoon House does exactly that.
We're on a quest to find the #1 architectural project for the series.
The Queens Museum is an important project. It's an adaptive reuse project. That means we're taking an existing building and we're transforming it or adapting it to be something else.
The way the architect approached it, I think, was incredibly respectful on one side, but also took some chances in flipping the layout.
And when you walk into that lobby, it's absolutely amazing with the large expanses of glass that connect to the outdoors.
And you know, how many of us have been driving on the expressway? We've seen that incredible globe. We've seen it in, I think, Men in Black. And for the architect to take that icon of New York and make it into the backdrop for a beautiful building was something really special.
Queens, New York, the most ethnically diverse urban area on the planet and home to world-class art and architecture. Mark, this is much more than just a renovation of a museum.
It really is, Adam. It's really the remaking of a cultural icon for the borough of Queens. Well, in fact, for the whole city of New York. This building was originally built for the 1939 World's Fair. And is the only remaining building from the World's Fair in '39, and was reused in the 1964 World's Fair. And in between that time, it was also the very first home of the United Nations.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, in fact, the partitioning of Palestine happened in this building.
Amazing.
And up until the museum expanded, it was also the ice skating rink where half the borough of Queens learned to ice skate. And that's very much a key part of the museum's identity. It's about outreach to the community and engagement in art and the making of art and the experience of art.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you completely reoriented the original entrance and reworked this facade entirely, right?
That's right, Adam. So the original entry was on the side of the building, and when we moved the ice skating rink, we could reorient to create a new gateway into the building, but it's not just a gateway to the building, but it's a gateway to the park.
Lovely. And tell me about the facade and this treatment around it.
Well, it was very important to the museum, again, to have an identity that expressed what they were about. So this idea was to create a very flexible facade that could be a receiver for artwork, for digital lighting effects that could be commissioned, or even as a palette for an artist to work on an annual basis. So Adam, you can see when you come through this narrow aperture and you turn and you enter the building, you get this great view of the Unisphere to make that real strong connection to the park. The intention is that the museum and its functions makes a physical, visual, and literal connection to the park. And they actually can host activities out in front of the building as a backdrop, film series, and those kinds of things.
And all of this glass wasn't here before.
That's right. We removed a big section of floor plate there so that we could create the two-story view out to the park.
And this central space is key in organizing all the functions of the museum.
It was probably the singular most important idea, which of course serves many functions for the museum.
And this beautiful form here that, you know, is in the space.
That's the panorama of New York City, all 5 boroughs. The model, which was commissioned by Robert Moses for the 1964 World's Fair, and has been seen by pretty much every school-age child in all 5 boroughs as well.
Of course, of course. And then there were second floor galleries that you had to connect to as well, right?
That's correct. So we were able to get 2 additional gallery spaces on the second floor, which are changeable, flexible galleries that face the park, now connected by this glass bridge, and of course, vertically connected by this monumental stair.
So tell me a little bit about the design of that stair. It has such a presence.
So the stair, influenced partly by the void that was left over from the form of the panorama. It's a great place, especially during events, to see and be seen. And it acts as a sort of piece of sculpture in itself that then is meant to relate quite subtly to the Unisphere.
Nice, nice. So a direct connection to the site.
Precisely.
Lovely. And hello, beautiful. Look at all that natural light. Gorgeous.
That's right, Adam. This was the central idea in how we would organize the temporary galleries around it. So there are 7 galleries that surround this, which we call the lantern. It really creates the large works gallery enclosure. The idea is that we can bring in natural light and project it into the galleries to create a very full spectrum visual experience within the galleries without having the deleterious effect of too much daylight in those sensitive art spaces.
And tell me about the louvers, how they function.
So the louvers in the ceiling basically are designed to limit the direct sunlight to only being on the floor without hitting any of the walls. And then the diffuse plates on the side basically project as a lantern the natural light in a controlled way to the galleries that surround. And then that light is reflected down into the galleries equally on all 4 walls.
Wow, nice. So almost like a functional work of art in and of itself.
That's the idea, that something that is performance-driven can also have a visual and sculptural quality and make this kind of cathedral-like space.
And tell me about how this gorgeous room is used.
It's very multi-purpose. We call it the Large Works Gallery. It's made for non-precious works of art, but it also is used for art, performance art, or other events. For the gala, for instance, it's used as a dining room.
I mean, I've seen functional spaces like this or, flexible spaces like this in museums before, but I've never seen them directly connected to the public aspects of the museum.
Each of these spaces, both the sort of entry gateway feature of the museum and the sort of flowing space from one to another, can create a very much of a kind of a living room feel for the borough of Queens.
The Queens Museum is a perfect example of how architecture can connect to and provide for its community.
In this series, we're introducing 3 new awards. The Air, Light, and View Award, sponsored by Marvin, celebrates the best use of windows to elevate design and promote well-being. The Interior Design Award, sponsored by Stone Source, honors one interior space that stands above the rest. And the Exterior Design Award, sponsored by Porcelanosa, will be presented to one project with exceptional exterior design. Winners will be announced in the final episode. We've tasked our elite panel of judges with selecting New York's best architectural and interiors projects.
Talking about architecture is one of my favorite things. We come up with ideas in our heads, but we can't figure it all out ourselves, and that's why we engage others.
The passion that comes from the other judges is certainly infective.
Judges do definitely fight for projects that they're passionate about, and then, people have different personalities. Some are more verbal.
No, I hope we're not all agreeing, because who wants to see that?
That's what makes it very interesting when you have this eclectic group of people. Each one of them are going to look at it from their perspective, their age, and their likes.
This next project is called the Convivium. It is unique because it uses a ventilated porcelain facade, which is atypical for the New York area.
The social responsibility that they have towards green energy is aspirational.
It's really rare to see a building that's residential like that using such passive architectural principles.
And it's something that we should strive for in so many of our buildings, and I really hope that it sets a precedent and other buildings follow suit.
The Upper East Side of Manhattan, where classic brownstones meet luxury high-rise apartments, like this one, the Convivium, a modern luxury building that not only looks great, but is also extremely energy efficient. Hey, Victor, nice to meet you. Beautiful building you've designed here.
Thank you. I was part of the Architectonica team that designed this building. And not only is this building absolutely beautiful, it's extremely energy efficient, and it all starts here at this facade.
Yeah, what is the space-age material? I was looking at that, it looks different.
Yeah, so this is a Porcelanosa porcelain panel exterior rain screen system. And what that does is it puts the insulation outboard of the building.
Okay, so not only is this the building's facade, but it's also the building's primary insulation.
Correct. And with the continuous air barrier underneath, will keep air from leaking out, it's extremely efficient.
Now I've heard there are all kinds of details like this inside of this building. You want to show me?
There's a whole bunch. Let's go take a look. So here, Scott, we started bringing some of the materiality from outside of the building, inside the building, in the lobby.
Yeah, it really works. It kind of looks like the structure of the building is all made out of the same material. Now this doesn't really look like a lobby to me. Where are the elevators?
So it was A very important goal here, the design of the lobby, was to have a public-facing side and a private-facing side.
Yeah, that's really important because so often you feel like you're living in a hotel.
Another great thing about the private lobby was to have the connection to the outdoors with the backyard.
Yeah, and how important is that outdoor space here in New York City?
And as we turn around, here are the private elevators to the residences.
You know, it really works. So Douglas, tell me about this name Convivium.
So convivium comes from a scientific term which refers to a population that distinguishes itself from its immediate community by how it lives differently. And in this community, the way that we live differently is with all of this natural light and luxury and good health and efficiency. And the efficiency starts right here in the kitchen, as you can see. You'll see the stone countertops and the naturally sourced materials, the energy efficient water fixtures, but look at this range. This cooktop is an induction cooktop. It's all electric, so there's no combustion. And with no combustion, there's no exhaust. And that means that we have no carbon emissions from the building, making this one of the air-tightest buildings in all of New York City.
So Douglas, I'm drawn to this large bank of windows over here.
We have oversized windows in all of the apartments throughout the building. They're extra tall, they're extra wide, and they're designed for two different kinds of efficiency: thermal, heating and cooling, as well as sound, so that you don't hear the city outside. It's because our building is designed to Passive House standard, which is an architectural standard for air tightness. The walls are extra thick, the windows are triple glazed, and because of that, you can control your climate very comfortably at any time of year. But as for the sound, listen to what happens when I open the door.
Ah, there's that city noise.
There's the city.
Yeah, you know, Douglas, I think I just heard a pin drop in there. This view is incredible. I think I can see at least 5 bridges out there.
I think from the roof of Convivium, you can actually see 7 bridges, and we're almost to the roof. This is the penthouse. It's the largest apartment in the building. It's 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms with a home bar and a den, and the efficiency extends all throughout the apartment right down to the bathrooms. Ooh. Our bathrooms have such efficient materials as naturally sourced stone tiles, one-piece toilets that can't leak, but the pièce de résistance are these beautifully sculpted sinks that were designed custom for Convivium by Porcelanosa.
Oh, wow. So Victor, this is a really beautiful amenity space. And look at this, I see even more outdoor space.
Yes, Scott. This is one of the 4 public outdoor spaces we have on the project. As we know, real estate in New York is quite the premium. So we had to make sure every inch of our site was utilized. It was also very important to us to make sure our residents had a balance of interior and exterior space.
Well, I think you've done a seamless job of bringing the inside to the outside. And even though we are outside right now, I feel like we've never left Convivium. Sustainable design is the future, and this residential high-rise proves that design can be environmentally conscious without sacrificing style or luxury.
Why let the judges have all the fun? Which architectural project do you think should win? Vote for your favorite in the KOHLER People's Choice Award. One entry will be chosen to win a Destination KOHLER experience at the American Club, the Midwest-only 5-star, 5-diamond resort hotel. For more information and to cast your vote, go to NewYorkByDesign.com or scan the QR code on the screen. Good luck.
Before our judges reveal their top picks for this episode, let's shift our spotlight to architect David Rockwell and take a look behind the curtain at some of his dramatic designs.
David Rockwell's passion for theater as a boy grew into an exceptional career in creating cultural experiences and award-winning environments in hospitality, lifestyle, and stage design. They connect, they transform, and they immerse. So David, we're in Times Square in the center of the Broadway Theater District at the Civilian Hotel. This was your baby. How did it start?
It began with a client who had a site, a small site here on 48th Street, and wanted to build a hotel. And as we thought about it, we realized this was a chance to create a hotel that authentically was not only about the theater community, but from the theater community. So this hotel houses something called the Olio Collection, which is over 350 pieces of art from theater artists.
These are the people who are behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, these are such amazing pieces because theater models are what the designer uses to communicate to the director and the cast. And of course, the public never sees these. These are the tools that create storytelling. And from a design point of view, this goes back to my earliest interest in how design brings people together. This won the Tony Award last year for Moulin Rouge, Derek McLean, a Freestyle Love Supreme. That's really a privilege to have these artists who we never see outside of their context step forward a little bit here and take center stage.
Yeah.
You know, my first day in New York when I was 12, I went to see my first Broadway show and ate at my first New York City restaurant. And I think somehow those two experiences seared themselves in my memory and until we were able to do this.
Which show was it?
It was Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh, great show. Tell me about the experience that you try to evoke for guests at this hotel.
You know, hotels, I think, are a fascinating kind of architectural challenge because the rooms, everything is compact. It really is like the ultimate star's dressing room. And we have theater artists that have contributed unique pieces in all the rooms as well. The process of public space in hotels is different from one project to another. In this case, we wanted a series of spaces that can be used for different kinds of events.
David, talk about drama. Let's talk about drama.
So we're in the center of the WATERLINE Club, which is 100,000 square feet of all kinds of amenities. And it was interesting because we were asked to create a destination for 3 different buildings, and drama is one of the main assets here. I just did a book with Fiden called Drama that looks at the things I find interesting and compelling and empathetic about theater and how those apply to architecture. And my world's involved in both. And I came to architecture from a love of theater. I think the great thing about drama is it embraces an audience. In theater, without an audience, there is no show. And I think in architecture, without people enjoying it, there is no building.
And you have choreographed a beautiful space. Tell me about the wood fabrication and what inspired you here.
We looked for a partner who could make that. And it's sheathed in maple sculpted wood made by a yacht builder in Maine because we wanted to go to someone who really understands fluidity. And it actually looks like it's taut because it gets thinner in the middle, like a nerve pulled. And it is really the nerve center of this whole space. You know, moving down these stairs is very much like a camera dolly. So as a viewer, you're kind of being embraced and a whole new set of views are coming up. And it really is a graceful way to kind of move and explore, like an exploration.
Yeah, this really feels like a New York lifestyle to me.
You know, to walk through New York is to experience every different kinds of activity. And here, that happens all within this one complex.
So we have rock climbing, a gym, bowling, a pool.
Graphic studios, places that are about creativity, smaller rooms, places you can discover. So there's big spaces and small spaces.
I hear that you have some secret rooms.
Well, there are a couple of more eccentric rooms. So this is actually a recording studio. So it allows people who are in the building who are interested in music to develop that. And it's one of many rooms that you wouldn't expect in a building like this. You know, I think it sort of is one of the things that's amazing about the city we're in is the arts and culture.
Yeah, and you pay homage to the culture of New York.
No, I do love it.
Time to find out which projects from this episode have been selected to go through to our Best of the Best final later in the series.
I'm quite pleased that this project has gone to the final. We really like the fact that it's a very simple building, that it doesn't have a lot of gimmicky ideas attached to it. On this particular project, I think that the emphasis was to bring that sort of interest to the very corner with the prismatic shapes. I think it was absolutely brilliant.
I was so pleased that the Queens Museum made it into the finals. It was certainly, I would would say one of my top 5 favorites. I love anything that brings a community together, and especially to celebrate beautiful things like art. So I was really happy that that got through to the finals.
Congratulations, we wish them well in the final. Join us next time for more inspiring designs on New York by Design, architecture.
For more information on any of the projects featured in the series, and to vote in the KOHLER People's Choice Award, go to newyorkbydesign.com.